Hey there, it's Dr. Justin Marcagiani. Welcome to Beyond Wellness Radio, where we provide actionable health information on a week-to-week basis that can help you improve your life. Feel free to head over to justinhealth.com, where we have various opt-in video series on more in-depth health topics such as female hormones, thyroid, and gut health. Also, while you're there, feel free and schedule a consult with myself, Dr. J, and or my colleagues. We're available worldwide to provide natural health support for any of your major health issues. Again, welcome to the podcast and enjoy the show.
And we are live. It's Dr. Justin Marcagiani here with Josh Trent in the house from California. Josh, how are we doing today, man?
Doing so good, man. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Well, I've seen you online for years, so it's a pleasure to connect with you over the interwebs. Excellent, man. Well, let's dive in. We chatted about kind of in our pre-interview that we really wanted to talk about breath today and how breath can be used to plug in, optimize, and tweak our nervous system, accelerate health and performance. First off, what made you get so passionate about something as simple but phenomenal as breath?
Yeah, because it was the only lever that I started to realize I could pull for my own anxiety. And I think many of us deal with anxiety. It's a myriad, right? There's a wide spectrum of things that make us feel uncomfortable. Typically, it's the stories we're telling ourselves. So the greatest way to get out of story is to shift your state. And I think one of the greatest ways, if not the greatest way, Justin, is to shift our state by the breath. Because if we do that, then we can choose anything. And this is something that came to me probably in about 2017, where I had done Mark Divine's Seal Fit event, which is like this 14-hour overnight crucible where,
what was that like?
With water and you do like Murph, which is 300 air squats, 100 pull-ups, 100 push-ups. You do it soaking wet. So I did all these things physically to find the crucible of where does my mind go? Where does my psyche go when I'm under pain, when I'm under duress? And so what I learned from that is the greatest thing that we all have is this shared adversity of life. You know, we are all suffering in some way. We are all dealing with some kind of hardship. And so I started to go to my breath training when I started to train for the 20X. And I learned actually box breathing from Mark Divine at the Unbeatable Mind Summit. So that was the kind of beginning, Justin, was, oh, I can actually use my breath to calm myself down. I had no idea that breath work even existed. And there's a huge story behind that too.
Cool. Awesome. So when we breathe, I'm just curious to get your take on it. So a lot of people, they tend to be mouth breathers, which kind of creates this sympathetic nervous system response where breathing through the nose kind of activates that parasympathetics, those olfactory nerves, which really help kind of that calming part of the nervous system. Is that something you agree with? And then do you focus on nasal breathing more versus mouth, or nasal for inspiration, mouth for expiration, or all nasal? How does that work?
That's a big question. So in my journeys with breath work, I believe there's 3 phases of breath work, and then the physiology aligns accordingly, right? So we have breath work for daily meditation and wellness, right? Whether it's rhythmic breathing or circular breathing. But I do believe that if you look at the physiology of the nose, and I learned this from Dan Brule, he's a 4-decade breathwork practitioner. The nose has spiral helical designs that are meant to draw air in. So from a scientific perspective, we are meant to breathe in, inhale through the nose. That activates the stress response. When we exhale, we have those parasympathetic receptors that allow our nervous system to relax. And of course, this is all through the vagal tone, right? So when we breathe in through our nose, when we breathe out through our mouth, especially, Justin, if we're doing that full belly breathing, it's like a big term right now. Everybody's like, oh, do the belly breathing. But like, are you actually doing it? Most people breathe in and out through their chest only because they're kyphotic, they're forward flexed. So long answer to your short question is when we breathe in through the nose and when we breathe out through the mouth, that is what allows our nervous system to downregulate. Yes, there's other things like acute stress management breath work and catharsis breathing, but those involve more breathing through the mouth because that's what's going to excite the nervous system, kind of like if you do the alternate nostril breathing to go on a stage. So, but for most people, the best way to breathe is going to be that deep belly breath inhale through the nose and then exhale through the mouth.
Very cool. Yeah. When I deal with my patients and we're evaluating breathing, one of the things I'll do is I'll put one hand on their chest, one hand on their tummy, and I have them breathe. And essentially we want the bottom hand to move, but not the top hand. Is that kind of a similar evaluation that you're looking at?
You know what I do? That's a great way to do it. I learned this from Paul Chek. I take a liter bottle of water, I fill it half full, I lay them on the ground or a bag of sand, and I just tell them to mentally focus on raising the bag or bottle and lowering the bag or bottle. So I'm actually training that somatic response in them when they're on their back. So that's how I think most people could start to learn how to belly breathe.
Yeah, I think anything that draws their awareness that this part of the area is moving versus this, and then of course when you're chest breathing, you know, all these scalene muscles are coming in, so then you're kind of drawing more of a forward head posture, which then actually makes it harder to get that deep breath in. So then it creates more of a sympathetic response. So I think that's really key.
Well, and think about this too. Our entire culture, you know, case in part to these devices, right, that we have,
totally.
We're so forward flexed, driving, computer, cell phone, even in conversations, most people aren't in the current moment. They're leaning forward to anticipate the next moment. So they're not even in the current moment. They're just leaning forward. This contributes to our flexed hips, our lengthened glutes, our kyphosis, and then we start living life where gravity is defeating us. So I believe that we get to kind of lean back, take our time, enjoy where we actually are instead of always anticipating being safe in the next moment.
I 100% agree. So when you're breathing, what does that look like for you? Like, is there a certain, like, there's different things out there. Everyone knows Wim Hof, which is the different kind of breathing. Some people are focusing on inspiration. Sometimes there's a hold to increase CO2, which is shown to improve vasodilation to the brain. Some have a longer exhale. What does I mean, there's probably different ones that you like, but like right now, if you're focusing on the listeners here, and it's the easiest thing they could grab, which one would you recommend? And what does that look like?
So in our breathe program that we have, we start with just training someone to do what's called cyclical breath. And cyclical breath is where we have a charged inhale and a relaxed soft exhale. Yes, there's similarities with Wim Hof. There's also similarities with Soma breath or with breath as prayer or with even holotropic breathing. The majority of things when it revolves around breath is that we're not reinventing the wheel. There's only three phases of breathing, right? The inhale, the hold, the exhale. We're not going to like develop some new breathing pattern because that's our whole pattern. So what I do is when I focus on people that are just starting their journey and they've heard about breath work or they're curious about breath work or they're like, how do I use this for my well-being? I start them with the cyclical. And that is a pull from a rich inhale, a relaxed exhale, and no pause. 6 of those in a row. If you look at the science, there's multiple studies, 2 of them recently on PubMed. That is what shifts our nervous system into less fight or flight and more rest and digest. So literally, I mean, that's the best place to start. Of course, from there, in the program, we also focus on different patterns of breathing, you know, whether it's being on stage or just being present with your family member. But honestly, man, 6 breaths is all we need.
And so 6 breaths, meaning like a 6 seconds in, like, or 6 breaths in a row, like
6 total. So literally just 6 times. So you notice how when I pull in, I'm actually taking control of my respiration. And this is one thing for an analogy I want to say is when we breathe in, we're taking control. When we breathe out, we're letting go of trying to be in control. That's a big differentiation that I want to say about breathing is we never want to, we're not trying to be in control both ways. Like we can control the breath in, but if we try to control the breath out too much, we're actually defeating the purpose of being in that cyclical pattern.
Okay. And so when you breathe in or breathe out, you're not focusing on any amount of time. It could be maybe 2 or 3 seconds in.
It's just a rich pull in. Yeah. Okay. I mean, whatever. And this goes to respiration muscles, whatever someone's intercostals or their diaphragm or their posture can handle. Because for some people doing this might be really challenging, you know, so maybe they need to pull in a little softer, just depending on how much their inhalation muscles have been trained. So that's why I think, honestly, the best way to teach breathing or to do breathing is not to get caught up in the weeds of details of seconds of hold and everything else. It's just clear, concise direction, like you'd tell a 10-year-old. Like, hey, take a deep breath in with your mouth closed.
Got it. Yeah. And then try to make sure that the belly is really being activated.
Yeah. And exactly like you do with your patients, you know, cue them to somatically feel and visualize what's going on. Otherwise, we are creatures of habit, right? We go to these patterns that don't always serve us, but our body's super efficient. I mean, you know this because you've talked about it on your show. The body is always trying to achieve homeostasis, no matter what.
It's always trying.
It's going to do that with the path of least resistance and the least amount of energy expenditure. So it's up to us to direct that body so it's in alignment with what we actually want.
Very cool. Well, there's things like Wim Hof that are out there. That's a big breathing style that people are talking about. What does that look like? Is this something that you incorporate yourself at all, or with people you work with? What does that
You
look
know
like?
what? Have you ever done any sessions on Wim Hof?
I have.
Did you have an experience where you felt an emotional release or catharsis in some way?
I actually used to do it a lot in a float tank, and it was
Yes.
really interesting because I had all the extra magnesium coming in. There was total
Yeah.
sensory deprivation, so it was pretty euphoric. I think a lot of that euphoria is coming from the CO2 that's being increased with the out, and then that CO2 goes up, and then you get this a little bit of adrenaline rush. And for me, it
Yeah.
was interesting because I was in this magnesium, drenched environment, so it was pretty euphoric for me. I really enjoyed it. What was your experience?
My experience was that when I initially did Wim Hof, I thought that it gave me more energy than I never felt. So
Yeah.
maybe it was something that was coming in through a different pathway energetically that I hadn't experienced, or maybe it was the super oxygenation. I'm not really sure. A lot of times we get so caught up with understanding the science that we
The
forget the
mechanism.
biggest report card is how we feel. And
Yeah.
so my initial experience with Wim Hof was it was energizing and charging. It wasn't until I started to do longer, more cathartic sessions that involved more of Bruce Lipton's work, where there was actual tissue palpitation and movement and breathing, where I was letting go of things that didn't serve me. And honestly, in Costa Rica, I combined plant medicine, which is ayahuasca, and breath work, which was incredibly powerful. But I think to answer your question, like the Wim Hof is great. There's nothing wrong with it. Actually, there's everything right with it. It's just that a lot of times people are adverse to cold therapy, because
Right.
Wim's specialization is breathing in cold. So
Yeah.
not everybody can jump into the cold if they're not ready for it, if they haven't done any kind of training like that. So I don't think his method is for everyone, but that's cool because that's why we're here talking about all the methods.
Yeah. What I typically do is I'll do the breathing. I'll start off, I'll do a normal shower every morning, and then I'll just, over like a 2 or 3 minute period, I'll just inch the water down to cold. And then I'll do the breathing for like 1 minute. And then that alone just really jump starts my day. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
So
you
that's
don't
a
need
pretty good way to
coffee
do it.
after that.
No, you don't. I'll still do some butter coffee with some MCT
Yeah.
and collagen, but it's like, man, I'm ready to go. So I like that. And it's a kind of the way of inching it down versus, jumping in with 2 feet, so to speak.
Yeah, and this is cool because I think most people that are listening to your show and that follow you, they understand that there's so many different tools and so many different ways of approaching this stress reduction nut. But you got to start somewhere. So whether you start with cold or breath or supplements or walking or meditation, I mean, gosh, there's a huge spectrum of tools that can get us to reduce stress. But you know what I really think, and please interrupt me if I'm taking us off of a weird path
No, you're
here.
doing
I think
great.
it's kind of cool because I like the weird. I think really what all these tools are doing is they're reminding us that we get to take better loving care of ourselves, treat our brothers and sisters on the planet with more love and care, and treat the planet with more love and care. So all the reason we're stressed out, the reason we have this psychosis as a society is because we've allowed the models that be that have been really from this old school way of thinking where we're going to extract as much resources from the planet as possible, and to hell with how we suffer, and who cares
hmm
about the long-term effects of our children or their children.
hmm
That's really why we're stressed because on an existential, very low subtle energy level, we are all feeling this existential unrest, where we're
hmm
in a time right now where we're under attack. Our attention is currency, our health, our air, our environment, everything right now is either stacked against us or stacked for us, depending on the intention of how we approach it. So I think there's a lot of background stuff going on here that really these stress reduction tools are pointing us to navigate towards this ethos of more love. And I'm not meaning like hippies around a fireplace. I mean, like legitimately, the act of love is what's healing to ourselves and to the planet.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I mean, just you jump on an airplane, right? What are the instructions when cabin pressure gets lost, right? Put your mask on before you help your kids next to you. And
Exactly.
and it's part of the just the mindset your body can only write a check for what's in your account. So the more you put love and or health, which health is just nothing more than energy and resources, the more energy and resources and or love you can give back. So yeah, it's important because a lot of people, I think, especially from 30 or 40 years ago, there was this sense of like you develop self-satisfaction by giving everything away that you have, and then you're depleted and then you're resentful, where it should be a little bit more of the opposite. You focus on yourself inward first, then you can give out even more outward. So it's kind of a different transactional model.
Yeah. And I don't know if you've talked about Lao Tzu, or everyone's probably heard this phrase,
Hmm.
as above, so below. And that's the same thing. Like, we literally, figuratively, metaphorically, like, there is nothing I can give you, Justin, from a knowledge perspective that I haven't been through myself, that I haven't
Right.
embodied. It's so easy in our world too, because there's so many people that are great researchers and great knowledge collectors. I have this concept that I explore in Wellness Force, and it's
Hmm.
intelligence. What is the true definition of physical and emotional intelligence? And I believe intelligence has zero to do with how smart you are. I think intelligence, based on my almost 20 years in wellness, is our ability to gather information like this amazing show, our
Hmm.
ability to apply the information, try on the sweater, see if it itches, do the supplement protocol, go through the food elimination diet. And then lastly, what you and I and everyone are working on is embodiment.
Hmm.
It's the embodiment of these lessons where we've gathered, we've applied. Now we're embodied. Now, when I talk to Justin, or when Justin talks to a patient, we don't have to say too much, because people can feel from us that we've embodied the gathering and the application. It's actually been imprinted into our nervous system. So we emit that when we're with other people. We don't have to say much, because the energy is just there. It's something they can feel. That's true intelligence. That's what we're really all kind of leading ourselves towards. And honestly, that's why people listen to podcasts. That's why people are here with us, because they're on that journey just like we are.
Exactly. And I think people see that the typical medical model, and the average medical doctor lives 10 years less than the average patient. So we know
Oh my
there's not
God.
some missing information that the medical doctor has and isn't giving to you. They're not educated fully. They understand a certain model of medicine that's really great for acute care and drugs and surgery and these things, but they're missing that. And I think, like you said, you want to find people that embody what it is you want, because that
Yeah.
means application. That means you're not just understanding it, you're totally applying it and embodying it in your life and in your
And
health.
dude, I love this, because I'm not trying to shame anyone. In no way am I saying that a health practitioner who doesn't have perfect visual representation of their health is in any way doing a bad job, because there's no place in my explanation for shame. All I'm saying is that we're all on a spectrum of an evolution of embodying our lessons. And so if there is a health practitioner who's struggling with their own health issues, which is pretty freaking normal, like that's the wounded healer becoming the healer. That is so admirable, as long as that person can share where they actually are, because we're in an industry that's very social media focused. So it's super, and this is what I want to say as a caveat to our conversation, it's super easy for pretenders to become successful. And I know this because I used to pretend. I used
Mhm.
to pretend that I had my things together that weren't really together. Now I just realized, man, the most relaxing thing I can do, and the most healthy and well thing I can do, is just be myself and tell the truth. That is the
100%.
best. That is the best. The most healing thing any of us can do.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, not everyone's going to be at the most optimal level of health physically or just mentally or emotionally, but they may have come from a place, let's say they're here and they're on this journey, they're already here. They're already, halfway maybe to where their goal is up above that, right? So
Yes,
they can
yes.
help people from here to there for sure, right? It's like if you've only gone half up the mountain, but you're on the way to climbing all the way up, well, you can at least take other people up to that halfway point,
Oh
right?
man, everybody's maybe heard of martial arts or maybe done them. You don't have to be a black belt to teach a white belt. Just let
Right.
that land for a moment. Like, there's a wide spectrum of colors that are way beyond the white belt. So no
Mhm.
matter what, as long as people are being in integrity about what they're sharing, I think we're in a good place. And I think we are going to come back as a collective to that actual service to ourselves, our brothers and sisters in the planet. And again, I know that it sounds a little woo woo. So I just want to make sure that I'm talking to the people who are more logical and analytical minded, because when I tell you, the thing that resists that is probably your ego saying, what is this guy, some kind of spiritual hippie? But I'm not. Like, I'm in the logical world like you. I have just seen and felt and experienced certain things that have really led me to this path, that if we don't have self-love and we're not taking care of ourselves and other people on the planet, nothing else really matters. It doesn't matter how great you look or how much money you have in the bank. Like, none of that stuff is going to be what you care about in your last days of life.
Exactly. And so much of good health is the foundations, right? It's kind of the boring stuff. And so that's like probably the most important part. So if you have a good foundation, then you can always get, more intricate in all the other things that you do with different testing or looking at infections or mold or certain supplements. You can always
Yeah.
get more intricate, but it's always built on a solid foundation versus a poor foundation where you're not sleeping well, not breathing well, you're not doing all the right things with your food, then that's kind of where I see a lot of doctors kind of get into this mode. They just get very nuanced and very
Ooh.
specialized, and they miss the solid foundation where that all should sit on.
Yeah, look at the industry of biohacking. So
Hmm.
one fascinating thing that I see is we have people doing photobiomodulation and red light therapy and all these different ways, the nighttime glasses, the NADs and all these things, and they're great. But it's almost like if you're going to build a home and you build it on a sloping
Yep.
hillside and
Or
it's built
sand.
on shaky sand, and the
Yep.
first time a storm comes, aka a virus, or your wife leaves you, or your husband
Yep.
leaves you, or there's an external stressor, that house is going to collapse. It doesn't matter how pretty it is. So that's this whole biohacking approach, where I think Dave Asprey had a good intentions in the beginning, but he's kind of created a monster, because we have all these people that are just like caught up in the marketing of like, oh my God, should I get the new thing? And it's like, nah, you actually need to eat, move, and sleep, and believe, think, feel, and act. Those are the 7 pillars that I believe we're all built upon.
I think that makes sense. And then I think if you have the pillars dialed in, then I think the biohacking is a much better kind of layer on top of it, right? I think
Yeah,
that's
I think
good.
biohacking is kind of like the pretty windows and
Hmm.
like the new
Yes.
doormat and the flowers,
Yep.
but it's like it ain't the house, my friends. It ain't it
Exactly.
ain't
Yeah.
really where you live.
Yep. I totally agree. So what's next? So from regards to breathing, is there another layer to it that you want to kind of hit?
Yeah, so we talked about the phase 1, and this is what I really love about the people that are in our programs, is that when we're looking at meditation, Justin, like most people struggle with just sitting still. That's the hardest thing, especially for people that are living this fast-paced life. So I think that phase 1, daily meditation breathwork practices, we're talking 7 to 5 minutes or less. This is what gives people the actual tool set, like the physical and the emotional intelligence to sit still and tune into what's actually going on in their life. Think of it as like a 5 to 7 minute emotional inventory. That's really what phase 1 is. Phase 2 is more stress
Hmm.
management. So this is acute, right? Like acute meaning it happens not that often, but when it happens, it takes you down.
Yeah.
So
It's
acute
significant.
stress
Yeah.
management would be like breathwork methods that last from 3 to 7 minutes. They're designed to get you immediately out of fight or flight. Let's say you're having a challenging, stressful situation in your day, like rapid heartbeat, or you need to shift out of this like right now. Well, we have certain breathing protocols in this program that deal with anxiety or self-esteem, even self-love, imposter syndrome, speaking to a crowd, things like that. But I will say that I'll do a little give right here because it's
Yeah.
really necessary. Alternate nostril breathing, where we're
Oh yeah.
just using our index finger and our thumb, where we're breathing in. But this is the key that most people miss, is they
Hmm.
just do the alternate nostril breathing. When we are breathing in through our left side, it's activating the right brain hemisphere. When we are breathing in through our right side, it's activating the left hemisphere. So the key on this one is to do those 6 deep breaths before you sit. And this is for acute stress management. And I really love this before going on a stage, because what do we need most when we're about to go speak? We
Probably
need our
creativity, more the
creativity.
right brain, right? So you're
Exactly.
going
So
left
we don't
nostril.
want to go into like just a rhythmic, calm breathing to calm ourselves down. We want to increase our focus. We want to increase our adaptability to being able to see what's going on. So the best way to do that is through doing these cycles of the alternate nostril breathing. And then this is the kicker that everyone misses that I really want to let people know. When you're breathing in through your right nose, really actually visualize your left brain becoming active. And then when you're breathing in through the left nostril, really visualize your right brain becoming active. When you do enough of this, that is where you have the physiology and you have the visualization that are they're bringing your creativity up, that are allowing you to get on the stage and be able to not just be calm, because obviously the belly breathing and the rhythmic breathing is going to calm you down. It's going to activate your vagal nerve, which, by the way, is innervated into the diaphragm. So not only do we get that stretch response from the diaphragm that turns the vagal nerve on and says, hey, parasympathetic nervous system, let's activate, let's bring everything down. But then we get the creativity from the right and left nostril. So we're really doing a top down and a bottom up approach to this stage fright breathing. So that's a good one. And that's what we go over in the program too.
That's cool. So you're doing left nostril here. So you're closing off the right to enhance the left breathing, and then that's going to go to the right brain, and then vice
Yep.
versa. That's more creativity, and the left brain more analytical, more numbers. So then you may close off this nostril, so it goes to
Yeah.
the left.
And we need them both.
Yeah.
When we're going up on a stage, it's like lights, camera, and action.
So
It's
you're
like,
doing like 6 breaths. You're doing like 6 breaths for each nose. Is that what you're
well,
doing?
no, what I would recommend is not counting sides, because we don't want to only focus on the logical. I would say just focus on doing those 6 deep breaths that we talked about. Sit in a relaxed position, stack your head, spine, and shoulders in a line, and then do it for a timer of 5 minutes. So set a timer on your phone, and don't
Got
worry
it.
about how many times you're doing it. Just focus on thumb to index, and just
Going
roll
back
through
and
that breathing.
forth.
Yeah. And
Very
that
cool.
way, before you know it, you'll forget that you're even doing it. And then you'll go onto the stage or into the business meeting with a more relaxed calm.
Very cool. Now you mentioned your morning routine. What does that look like? So you start your day. How does that all go?
Okay. I'd love to, since we're on this morning routine conversation, I know, it's probably come up a ton on your show. Everybody's got their own approach, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that if we really boil it down, most of us have about 10 to 20 minutes.
Yep.
Let's just say 21 minutes, because that's what we created as a gift to give to people, which is, out of 300 plus shows, what are the common threads that connect the base practices for, like, the Tim Ferriss, the Dave Asprey, all the people? Like, what's the thing they're really doing, man? Well, I'll tell you what, it's about 6 things. It's about
Yeah.
6 things. And one of them is making your bed. There's hydration. There's some specific movement. There's some specific breath and meditation and journaling. And those are the ones that make the biggest impact, no matter if you're spiritual or logical. So that's what I do in my morning. And I want to give this to your audience, because, man, I know how much of a spectrum you cover on the show. Like, the way that you serve and the way that you give to people that follow you, I would love to be able to give too, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Well, it's wellnessforce.com/M21. It's morning 21.
Oh, great.
It's a free practice in there. You guys can have it. Like, I've distilled it down. It took me months to create. And in there is breathwork exercise for a week. There is meditation. There is movement. It's all linked there for you.
That's
You just got to
awesome.
do it. But
I
here's
didn't
the
even
thing.
know that was coming. That was perfect.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Like, we got the PDF, which is perfectly created for you. Are you going to do it? Like that's the deciding factor. There's a bridge between knowing and doing, man, as I'm sure you experience with patients. And my heart goes out to all of us, because I'm there many times in my life, all the time, where I know all the things, I have all the books, but am I doing it? Am I actually doing it? And there's so much to explore in the middle of knowing and doing.
And sometimes it's just like, hey, you don't have to do it all. Like, there's not a pressure to incorporate all of it. But maybe you read it, you go through it, and you just pick one thing that resonates, and then you apply that. And then maybe you get some momentum, and then that inspires you to go back and maybe stack one more thing into the routine. And then you get momentum.
Yeah, momentum is the hardest when we're starting. God, it's like somebody who's like, let's say they're overweight, like maybe 20% more body fat, 22, and they're in a place where they're broke financially, and then their relationships aren't working. I've been there, my friends. I've been there multiple times.
You don't know where to start. You get overwhelmed, and then analysis leads to paralysis. You're like, man, there's so many things I could do, but I just can't do any because I just can't make up my mind.
Can we go there? So when we're in that place, what do we do? What is the very first thing that we do? I know from my own experience, it's doing some type of state change. Because the reality is, if we don't know what to do, but we know we don't want this, then we must allow ourselves to do something different so that we can feel and be. There's this paradigm that people talk about in personal development, and it's be, do, have. I'm going to be the type of doctor that cares about my patients, or the type of podcaster that cares about information. I'm just going to be that first, regardless of what diploma I have on the wall or how many books or interviews I've done. Then I'm going to do the things that someone with my qualities, the way of being that I'm embodying, is actually going to do. I'm going to have great conversations. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to do my breathing. I'm going to drink clean water. I'm going to have loving conversations. I'm going to admit when I'm wrong. I'm going to allow my ego to dissolve. Then I go into the having, because this is what people get backwards, man. Everybody wants to have money. If I have money, I'll be happy. If I have a wife, I'll be happy. If I have a husband, I'll be happy. It's freaking backwards. It's be and doing and having. So this relates to our conversation of, where do I start? You start by taking a deep breath. Sometimes that's all you get. Sometimes all you have is a deep breath. You get struck down to your knees with a financial loss, or you lose a daughter or a son, or you go through adversity, and you might find yourself on your knees, honestly, just breathing and just praying to spirit for something. So that's what happens to all of us at certain points in life. And Justin, like how we respond, man, how we respond is everything. Because with our tools for state change, it allows us to go into the next moment with something that's actually going to be good for us. But if we don't have tools and we're not trained, then we're going to seek addictions. We're going to seek vices. We're going to hang out with people that validate our story of being a victim. So all this stuff, it either leads us towards love or leads us towards fear.
Yeah, 100%. And I think when you're in that place, just starting to think about what it is you want and starting to listen to people that have what it is you want kind of starts to get the beingness motivated. And if you're having a hard time getting out of the gates, that's where reaching out to someone that's kind of walk with people on that journey increases your chance of success. And so those are the kind of I do agree the being part's really important, because if people just do, and they ever really thought about it, their chance of failure increases. And then also if they fail, they may not jump back on the wagon again. Right. So then it creates a level of sustainability where you're more supported, and you've kind of looked at best practices. So your success rate goes up.
That's powerful, man. Cause you know what I was thinking about when you're sharing that was, it's the being that most people have trouble with. And I think what really the most people have trouble with is too many of us have way too much pride. I'll speak for myself. Too many of us have a lot of pride, and that pride, it's almost like a veil that only allows people to see what we want them to see. And then on the backside of that, we're struggling with alcohol. We're struggling with marijuana. We're struggling with porn. We're struggling with food or shopping. Fill in the blank, man. You know, the ego loves to hold things in the dark. So what happens is when we're not articulate and we can't be truthful about what's really going on, it leads us down this path of disconnection. And the path of disconnection is what yields disease. So really, really what we're talking about, and I love to go deep on all these answers because we're deep humans, is that we're either being honest or not.
100%. That makes a lot of sense. Now, question for you is, how long is being too much? Meaning, like, if you're just sitting in a being state and you're not ever moving to the action state, when is just sitting in the being just too long? Like, when should you be pulling the trigger?
That's a really good question.
You know,
God, that's so unique for everyone, because I would say this. I think the answer to your question is it depends. And with the caveat of everyone knows when what they're doing or how they're being is not worth it anymore.
Right.
And for some people that might take weeks or months or years, but what makes something worth it? If you even look at the definition of worthiness, if we feel worthy and we have self-love practices, and we actually energetically and we embody the fact that we are loved, that we are truly loved, then that's going to allow us to shift out of states of unworthiness way faster. I call them cycles of recommitment. So when I work with people, I walk them through inventories of, all right, you've made a mistake and that's fine. Is it actually a mistake, or is it just a lesson? Is it just something that took you off your path for a brief moment to give you the contrast of energetically, emotionally, whatever it is, a result that you don't like? If you're in a crappy spot and you don't like how you feel, or you don't like what's going on, can you see that as a gift? And can you see that as something that's directing you back to what you do? And so the answer to your question is that it always depends. But I think that the real barometer of success there is, am I experiencing a life that is giving me joy? That is something that I'm in enjoyment of, that I like? Do I like my life? Or are there certain parts of my life that are in the background that I know I'm in the process of change? So if someone's in a place where they're really stuck and they feel like, damn, I'm depressed, I'm sad, I'm overweight, whatever it is, I would say allow yourself to feel it. It's the opposite of what is taught out there. Most people say like, oh, go out for a walk, change your state right away. I'm saying to change your state, but only change your state when you've gotten the gift of your discomfort. Get the gift of your discomfort before you change your state. Because if you change your state without unpacking the gift, you're going to go right back, and that the cycle of recommitment is going to get even longer and longer. What we're looking for is to recommit to your practices of health in a shorter time frame over and over and over again, so that the cycles of recommitment get smaller and smaller and smaller.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, when I'm interacting with patients, I'm always looking at what their chief issues are. I understand their timeline of how we got to this point. So it makes sense from a root cause perspective how we got here. And then what do we want to be, do, or have that these symptoms, that these health issues are preventing you from having? And then once I understand what they want to be, do, or have, and we understand that the energy is preventing them from going out and doing that, or their pain or their digestive issues are preventing them from going out and achieving or doing or being whatever that is, now I can create leverage for them to change because now they understand, hey, eating this type of food or sleeping like this or doing this kind of movement isn't about doing that unto itself. It's about moving the physiology in a direction that allows you to be, do, or have these things over here that we talked about.
I love that you said leverage, the word leverage. That is so powerful, man. Because you know what the greatest leverage is? It's either pain or pleasure. Like I have a friend who I just met actually, and he came to me. I was giving him a gift. I was giving him some green juice, and he was like, "Yeah, I just found out that I have cancer."
Hmm.
And it rocked my world because I didn't expect it. You know, and here I am just giving somebody a gift, and they're like, "Yeah, I just found out I have cancer." But you know what I've seen? I've seen his entire world shift. Now he's hanging out with community. Now he's being more active. Now he's looking into Wim Hof. Now he's disease is sometimes the biggest lever that we all need.
Yep.
And disease is a reminder of the path back home. So we're all going home eventually. You know, we're all going to leave this physical planet, man. But before we do so, like, what are the lessons that we are interested in learning? And I think when I've caught myself too, where I've been like, why does cancer even happen? Why does disease even happen? Why are people born? Why? And the more I would ask that why, specifically in psychedelic journeys, the more I would hear back that you don't get to know because that's honoring the mystery. We're in a big mystery here. So part of that mystery is honoring the decisions that we make and accepting the fact that sometimes people get sick. Sometimes people get disease, sometimes people get cancer, but we also know that in those situations, how they respond to it and what it actually means for their life to be more connected to community, be more connected to themselves. Sometimes that's the biggest leverage that's ever needed, you know? So leverage is a big one.
Excellent. I totally agree. Is there anything else you want to leave the listeners here today with, Josh?
Yeah, I would just say that we all get in times where we feel low. I've had mental health issues in the past. And I think as we step into May, you know, May is this National Mental Health Awareness Month, which is fine. But we get to be aware of it all the time because the majority of people that are having trouble with wellness, which is really the core of your show, you know, how do we live our life well? What's our well-being look like? It starts with a decision we make. And the decision we make is, hey, Justin, hey, Josh, hey, person who's with us, I love you. And just feel the resistance there, even telling yourself that you're loved, even understanding that you could be loved. That's the big one. And it's the thing that a lot of people don't talk about because it's kind of woo-woo. Let's be honest. It's kind of woo-woo to talk about self-love, but it has a scientific and pragmatic meaning to our nervous system, to our mental health, to our well-being that can't always be quantified. You know, science and spirituality are at odds for a reason. And it's because we're evolving as a species to understand that we've always been loved. So I think that that's the biggest path I want to leave people with is if you're going to do one thing from this entire conversation, take a deep breath, take loving ownership of your state, and really do the work so that you can be the type of person that has the things that are centered around self-love.
I love that. That makes so much sense. And I always kind of have the mindset is you have to be the one to pat yourself on the back a lot because there are a lot of times you're going to be cleaning the dishes, doing some chores, taking out the garbage, doing the obligations of life. And there's not going to be a crowd watching you, or your spouse isn't going to be watching you the whole time, being able to give you a pat on the back saying, great job taking out that garbage. Hey, thanks for putting away the dishes. It's not going to happen. So you kind of have to be there being like, wow, you did a really good job making your bed this morning, you know, or you did a really good job eating that great organic food for breakfast, especially when the donuts were over there in the office instead. Right. So you kind of have to be the one catching yourself doing all these things and kind of giving yourself that, you know, silent pat on the back, or even going into the bathroom and looking at yourself in the mirror and giving yourself some praise or some affirmations for doing the right thing.
Yeah. When's the last time that we did that? You know, let that land for a moment. When's the last time you actually did what Justin said? You know,
it's important.
If it's been a while, this is your reminder. This is your loving reminder. So I love that, man.
And I think also that takes away from you needing to plug into other people to get that. Because a lot of times if you plug into people to get it, number one, they have a lot of control over you. And if you plug into the wrong people, they may manipulate you with that. And so the more you unplug from others and you kind of plug into yourself a little bit more, it gives you the control. But two, it gives you the ability to have that lovingness reflected back inside of you for all the good things that you do.
Man, I've enjoyed this conversation immensely. And I know that if somebody is in that state where they feel stuck, if you listen to this twice or 3 times, it's going to help shift you. So it's an honor, man.
Well, I really appreciate it. And your podcast is Wellness Force, correct?
Wellness Force Radio. Yeah.
Wellness Force Radio. Excellent. Is that wellnessforceradio.com?
No, it's wellnessforce.com. And the reason we named it that is back in 2010, I was just like, what am I doing in health and fitness? Because I had 10 years as a trainer. And I realized that fitness was the gateway to wellness. And we're all born with this force inside of us. Everybody's born with a wellness force, no matter who you are, what you're up to. It's just tapping into that. It's allowing that to flow.
Well, I appreciate it. You're in my podcast queue. You have some excellent guests. So anyone listening, feel free to head over to wellnessforce.com. And then how do they get access to the sleep course you mentioned again? Sorry, we had the morning routine course, and then you also the breathing course.
Yeah. So, I mean, gosh, it's a part of everything. So I love that you said sleep and breathing. Wellnessforce.com/M21. That's morning 21. In that guide is a beautiful, easy step-by-step pathway to get access to the Breathe program. And the Breathe program is really about using breath for stress reduction and designing life for your own personal well-being. So those 2 things are linked at wellnessforce.com/M21.
Excellent. Very good, Josh. Really appreciate it, man. Love to have you back soon. It was a pleasure chatting with you. You have an awesome day, man.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Got a question for Dr. J? Go to beyondwellnessradio.com and click the questions button. Then tune in to hear the answer. Also, if you like the show, click below to review us on iTunes. For more Beyond Wellness Radio, go to beyondwellnessradio.com.